Hello and welcome. My name's Goose.
My name's Gabby.
Sorry, I was
waiting for that full exhale then.
I got really distracted halfway through,
Oh.
which is bizarre.
Wonderful.
Anyway, my name's Goose. Your name's Gabby.
Yes.
And of course, if you are listening to this and you don't know where you are, well, I think you need to ask yourself a few serious questions because you are, of course, inside listening to, you're in and around, submerged in, on top of, and all of the other different ways you can interact with something, the Investor Lab. Welcome back. I think it might be one of the best intros that we've done.
That's great.
So, of course, this is the auditory and visual epicenter for passionate people seeking a life of freedom, choice, and abundance, specifically through investing successfully in real estate.
Yes.
This is Hunting Hotspots number 4, right?
Yes.
This is the 4th key driver that drives growth in property markets around the country, right? I think it's the 5th episode in the series, but it's core driver number 4.
Number 4.
All right, so some of the stuff we've covered in the past, if you've missed it, is urban renewal programs, natural gentrification, and in transport and infrastructure. This episode, we're going to be talking about lifestyle features.
So we're talking water, we're talking golf courses, we're talking beaches, we're talking cosmopolitan living, shopping, cafes, bars, all the good stuff.
Totally. And we talk a lot about Bondi Beach because that's where we are. And we moved here because of the lifestyle features. So it's super relevant. But everything we talk about in this episode can be applied more broadly in any capital city or in any major regional centre anyway. The same principles apply. We didn't just talk about water and golf courses and cafes and shops, even though they are the core pieces that drive the lifestyle features. And in fact, not all water and not all sections of the golf course are created equal. That's fascinating. But we also talk about why and how lifestyle features are becoming one of the key drivers throughout this coronavirus 2020, pandemic, recessionary period that we're all currently swimming around in. So, and we also talk about the fact that when you find good lifestyle locations, they demand sometimes 60 to 80% more of a premium than other locations, and how that could potentially be a key indicator for what we can expect to see in other areas as people move towards these locations. Did I miss anything, Gabby?
Nope.
Okay, what else did we cover? Anything we sort of talk about some of the, we spoke about volatility a little bit as well.
Yes.
Because whilst lifestyle can be such a really great driver, it can also be a harbinger of volatility. So you need to watch out for that too. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Make sure you pair this like a nice club sandwich with all of the other Hunting Hotspots episodes, because together these are your keys to finding the right location. And as ever, make sure you're getting like 3 or 4 of these drivers all in any one place. And if you want to jump ahead, if you're like, oh my God, this series is great, but it's taking too long, just head to theinvestorlab.com.au. You can download the, what's it called, Gabby? What's that resource called?
How to find a real estate hotspot.
How do I do
PDF.
Yeah, that's it. Just go there. In fact, for those studious among you and those ambitious and entrepreneurial, you can get everything that you need to go and successfully invest in real estate just by listening to this podcast or going to theinvestorlab.com.au and downloading some of the free resources we've got, including my book, Limitless: The Renegade's Guide to Building Wealth Through Property. You can get that there. But if you don't want to go and do that, if you're like, look, man, I'm not here to go to school. And if you want someone to help you do it, well, this is what we do every single day of the week. Every day, even Sundays. We help people to successfully invest in real estate, help them build property portfolios that pay them money, go up in value, and are cushioned from any economic downturn. Yes, even the current one. So if you're into that kind of stuff, if you want to have higher levels of success and with way lower risk, then I recommend you should reach out to us. And you can do that from theinvestorlab.com.au. There's a little contact us, a little spot you can get us right there. Or you can head to dashdot.com.au/discovery. And you can book in a call with probably me or maybe one of the team.
Cool.
Yay! Well, look, enough gas bag and let's get stuck into it because there's a lot of good stuff in here. Spring has sprung, buying season has begun, so make sure you get them right in and around it. And of course, if you found this beneficial in any way, shape or form, then please like, rate, review, share, comment, Do all the other good stuff.
Thumbs up everywhere. All the thumbs up.
Thumbs up. We really appreciate you being on this journey with us, and I hope you appreciate us being on this journey with you. And without any further ado, I look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Woo!
Hey guys, welcome back to the Investor Lab. You know who I am, and I'm here with my mate, Gabby.
Hello.
Hey, mate. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. What's going on?
I don't know where this voice is coming from.
Neither do I, but...
What is going on? The sun is shining. It is officially the end of winter now.
Spring has sprung. Buying season has begun.
Ooh.
It's officially buying
How
season.
exciting.
Get out your hunting hats and your property guns and...
Should we own a hunting hat?
I'm not sure.
Seems like something as property buyers we should.
Does it? Does it seem...
I don't know.
The classic uniform of a buyer's agent. Crikey.
Need a wolfhound and a buying hat.
Okay.
There
All
you
right.
go.
I'm going to get one for the next episode. I'm going to see if we can do a little dress up.
It's
So,
going to change the game. How are you today, Goose?
very well. Thank you.
Why?
Oh, great question.
Oh, gotcha. I got you.
Yeah. You got me with one of those classic questions. So I'm great. So the sun is shining, as you said. Spring has sprung. We live in a beautiful part of the world. Look, when the sun comes out, everything changes for me. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people. But God, I just love it. I love the way the light is in the air and the temperature of the air changes and the coolness and the warmness and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, I get drunk on the beauty of life when the sun starts to come out a little bit. And it's, oh my God, it is genuinely so impactful for me. But the other side of that is, I mean, that can kind of happen anywhere, and it does. But, it's been about a year since we first ever arrived in Bondi Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been reflecting on that, particularly over this past weekend with the sun out and everything like that, and thinking just how lucky and how grateful I am that we live in this beautiful lifestyle location.
Yeah. I love the birds and the sounds of the birds that tend to come out when the sun is out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes my heart happy.
Yeah, we have birds cruising, like hanging out on our windowsills, and
You were feeding them almonds before.
I wasn't feeding the wild animals.
They're the healthiest cockatoos you've ever met. They're vegan. they eat organic seeds and nuts from Goose McGrath.
What if they eat meat?
And meat.
All right. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Gabby? What are we actually talking? Aside from meat eating vegan cockatoos, what are we talking about today?
New craze. We are up to episode 4 of the Hunting Hotspots series, which we're going to talk about, coincidentally, lifestyle features.
Absolutely, and lifestyle features, I think, are super. I think this conversation is really, really relevant to be having right now, and I'm going to talk about why.
Yep.
But also, like, lifestyle features are the single reason that we currently live in Bondi Beach.
Yes.
Right. So we actually moved from Geelong, but more broadly from Melbourne. We only lived in Geelong for about 8 months or something, right? So it's not like we were like from Geelong per se, but more broadly, we moved from Melbourne, Geelong to Bondi Beach for the lifestyle. We looked at it, we were like, wow, had all these amazing, features, and we were just like, we could see ourselves there, and you get in this cosmopolitan dream, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be like Hugh Jackman, and things are great. And that's why we moved here.
Everyone here is Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
It's just many, many Hugh Jackmans around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big Hugh. So there's 3 types of lifestyle features that have the biggest impact in the value of real estate. A lot of people talk about water.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk about water. Water's kind of got this reputation as being sort of the millionaire maker in real estate. You get waterfront, water views. God, how many times have you seen something listed, particularly around here, where it'd be like ocean views? And it's like, if you go into one specific room and if you squish your head up against a door frame and look at it at just the right time of day, you can see about a 5 cent piece size of the water. ocean views.
Mhm.
And that's a big catch cry that does drive up values in properties. But there's water. There's also golf courses. Interesting. We'll talk about that in a little minute. And lifestyle precincts.
What do you mean by lifestyle precincts?
So areas where people want to congregate to have a good time. All right. So Bondi Beach is a really great example. I'm going to talk about Bondi a lot because we're here and we understand it. So beach, water, great, awesome. And there's also, where we live right now, we overlook the golf course, which is great. So we're like a couple of minutes from the water, from the beach. We overlook a golf course where we live. That's great. But there's also all of these like cafes and bars and restaurants and, and there's just a lot of activity. You can cruise down the street and there's people watching and it's a hub. Like people come to Bondi because, to go out for dinner, but also like go to the beach. And lifestyle precincts are typically designed to bring people together in one central place, as opposed to just, a shopping strip or a shopping center or something like that. Make sense?
So it's like it's a deliberate social structure, I suppose.
Yeah, a bit of a cosmopolitan vibe. Like if they've got an acai bar, you're probably in a lifestyle precinct. If you can get your Buddha bowls, and it's that kind of thing. And
macadamia
lattes. I think that is actually what has driven the prices up in Bondi so much.
Macadamia milk.
It's all the macadamia milk that they get pouring around here. It just
it makes sense.
Flows into the market.
It definitely makes sense.
With the price of macadamia milk lattes, everything else goes up. Anyway, so the big thing about water, let's talk about water for a minute though, because there's a couple of interesting things here. People don't understand how golf courses impact prices. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I also want to talk about why lifestyle drivers are one of the biggest, one of, if not the biggest swinging factor that's driving up prices during this challenging economic time that we're having. Coronavirus.
Did you know? Did you know there's a pandemic?
Did you know that there's a virus?
You heard it here first.
Anyway, if you heard it here first, don't go outside.
Listen to anything
Probably
else.
A little late for you. Anyway, so... Okay, so some people try and rank different waters in different ways. It's not all water's made equal, because I once lived in a house that had a really big puddle at the end of the driveway, like massive. Like you couldn't get out of the drive without getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
That was not
great waterside location though.
I made little paper boats.
I
made little paper boats, and I was like, oh, look at the yachts.
Taking Instagram photos of your paper yachts.
Yeah, so puddles don't count as waterfront.
Oh, really?
Right? No, unfortunately. Overflowing gutters, not the same, right? We've all been there. We've all lived there. That's true, right? So
why not?
Well, because it's all about desirability. So what we're really talking about here with lifestyle, right? What we're really talking about lifestyle features is this is a huge part of the psychographic drivers. Now, if you want to go deep into the psychographic versus demographic thing, there's another podcast episode that we did, which is awesome.
Yeah,
like totally dynamite, and it's kind of stuff you're not going to hear in the normal, banal kind of drivel that you'd hear in most property podcasts. Go and check it out. It's really good. I can't even remember what episode it is, but it's great. It's one of my favorites. Now, what we're really talking about with lifestyle drivers is we are almost talking purely about psychographics, because what we're talking about is the emotional and esoteric elements which make people desirous of living in a certain location, which is why some water or some parts of a golf course will demand bigger premiums than others. So if you think about it like this, if you had a choice between living in a house that had absolute water frontage that faced north and faced the ocean versus a waterfront that faced north, we would say the same thing, faced north but was on a river, what do you think would demand a bigger premium? There's no wrong answer.
The first one.
It is the first one. It is the first one. And largely that's because of well, there's a few different reasons, but largely because of our some innate, intangible desire to have that kind of environment. Partly also, I believe, because there's a huge psychological piece that when you can see the horizon, it changes the expansiveness of the way you view the world, in that there are less limits and less boundaries, right? And so I think there's a few different pieces around that. But when we think about success, anyone who's ever done a vision board or anything like that, and I've done a number of them, you typically, I want to live in a beach house, and everyone has this idea of living at the beach as though that it's going to be the key to them having a successful life, and that's the key differentiation. At the end of the day, water's water. You could live next to a river; it's still water, isn't it? But I can tell you, if you live in Warrandyte in Melbourne, and you have a creek running through your property, that's not going to get the same price as if you had an absolute beach frontage in Vaucluse, for example, which I think is actually north facing and on the water.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense, right? So the kind of like some people, now I don't have this maths behind this, but some people believe that the order, the hierarchy of value goes in this order. So north facing property onto ocean frontage or views. And I think this lends into the idea of having that expansiveness in your viewpoint, and it changes the way you view the world around you. East facing property onto ocean frontage or views. So north first, then east. And then north facing property onto canals without restrictions to open water access. So you're basically talking like an inlet, right? You're basically sort of pretty much water. So kind of Noosa is a good example of that. And then rivers and lakes and all of the other kind of stuff is all kind of lumped together. Thoughts on that, Gabby? Comments, commentary?
I mean, it makes sense, right? There's that desirability of, as you said, people just want to live by water. They want to have a nice view. They want to feel the nice sun in the nicest angle possible. So the angle and the direction that they face makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, absolutely. I'm desirous of that. I think a lot of people innately are, and so I think it's a very hard thing to quantify. Like specifically, why is that the thing? But I think there's a deep part of us that we all believe it. No, we all want to live near the beach and all of that kind of stuff too. Here's a little bit of a curveball. For a long period of time, people are saying that golf courses with the new beachfronts. I don't know if I agree with that either. That sounds like crap.
We love the beach though, so
yeah, that's true. But we do overlook a golf course. So, and in fact, overlooking a golf course, I think, lends into the views component. So this is my analysis of why that is the case and why golf courses are. So typically when you actually do look at property prices that surround a golf course or overlook a golf course, property prices are significantly higher than if they were just like one street back. Now, when you think about it like that, it kind of makes sense, because if you're next to typically basically a large parkland that is very green and also has lifestyle benefits like, people associate playing golf with relaxing and having time freedom and money freedom and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't cost much money to get a ball and hit it with a stick. It's golf, right? But the association of the pastime is when you have achieved a certain, maybe you've retired or whatever, and it's got this overtones of freedom and affluence and all that kind of stuff as well. So I believe that there's this again lends into that psychological component, but then also when you're looking out at a golf course, it's typically very green and open and well manicured, and so you've got all these kind of overlays as well, which is why if you can see a golf course versus being one street back from a golf course, they're completely different kettles of fish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
And so one of the interesting things is that there was a study that I read that analysed houses specifically that were on the biggest fairways, that overlooked the biggest fairways of golf courses, got the greatest premiums.
Well, that makes sense, right? I'm just thinking through the views concept, and it's like where we used to live, it was on the ground floor, and I used to comment a couple of times about I didn't like being on the ground floor, which is interesting because it's like a lifestyle feature, right? Just that I didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
But because I'm aware that I'm a lot happier, and I think most people are happier when they do have that view. So now we're in where we are now, and we've got a view of the golf course one way, and then we've got a view out to vista of hills and houses, so like house tops that way. And I love it. I love sitting by the window and being able to just look out. And you're right, dude. You feel like you have a better perspective on the world, like the further that you can see from your abode. I can sit here safely in my place and I can see many other things and I feel satisfied and happy.
Yeah.
It's a weird...
Well, it's the same reason why the
thing.
top apartment in an apartment building is always the most expensive.
Mm.
You know, like even in the ones that, you know, old school maybe didn't have a lift. It's like, man, you got to walk up all those stairs. It's harder to get in and get out of, but it'd still be more expensive.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because you have a more expansive view. It's not always about convenience. You think about it, like if you're in a 10-story apartment block and you live on the top floor, you're going to have an amazing view, but you're also going to have to spend the most time in the lift and like there's all these other kind of things, but it kind of doesn't really matter as much. But here's the thing. Lifestyle, I believe, is one of the current biggest drivers in the current economic climate, or particularly in the property market, that's moving people around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because
I think people have realized that, you know, a lot of time they live in places of convenience. Could be Parramatta, could be Carlton, could be whatever, could be Footscray. And these kind of areas that may be very convenient and to a certain degree held a degree of lifestyle appeal, as in they were close enough to cafes and shops and bars and friends. But now that everyone's kind of in a position where they don't, and well, more specifically as well, closer to economic centres where they'd have work. But now that people can work from home, work from Zoom, like most people can work remotely, even if it is 60 to 70% of the time and not 100%, they're still gaining that freedom. Now, I kind of spoke about this in an episode with Terry Ryder, which was really good, called Fiscal Cliff is a Lie. Check that out because that was also awesome. But we kind of talked about this idea that people are now realizing that they can live where they want.
Yep.
And now people are going, well, where do I want to live?
Yeah.
What is the thing that I'm after the most? And we're seeing this huge push to regional centres because a lot of people are after just a bit of a quieter lifestyle. So we'll talk about tree and sea change in another episode because it's a whole different dynamic there. But it is one of the reasons that we've seen people, say, for example, moving towards Central Coast, moving out of the cities. I don't believe that the city is going to turn into a ghost town anytime soon or anything like that. But we're definitely, like, for example, searches in some regional towns in Victoria, as people are trying to get out of CBD Melbourne, searches have gone up by 170% in 30 days.
Crazy.
Which is crazy. Now, that's driven by lifestyle more than anything else. And in fact, I had a coaching call with one of our clients last week, and they were asking about this too. We were talking about that, and they live in Sydney, and even they've noticed, you know, that there's a progressive push. Like, why would you live in the city or in an inner suburban location that doesn't have many lifestyle features when you could? Let me take a little step back. I spoke to someone who came to me to speak to me the other day, and they lived in a sort of like a mid inner west Sydney suburb, but they worked in the city. Mm-hmm. And I said, how long does it take you to commute into the city on an average day? And he said, I think he said about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. And I just got up Google Maps and I was like, well, why don't we just have a look at where else you could live?
Which other direction could you go?
Yeah, maybe just go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And he had a bit of a meltdown because he was like, oh my God, I can go live near the beach. I was like, you can do whatever you want, mate. And this is the kind of thing that I think people are starting to really align themselves with.
Yeah, I think it's like interesting, the word align, because I think it is about this time is kind of having people realign their values. Like, I think for the past, 30, 40, 50 years, there's been a shift to prioritizing employment and work, and that is your 9 to 5, and that's, you base the rest of your life around that. But as we move into more of a digital space and people can actually achieve their work from wherever they like, and they actually have a much higher value, and they're being reminded of the value of being closer to family and being closer to people that they care about above work. Like, everyone's always cared about being close to people that they care about, but prioritizing it above work, prioritizing it above the need to be physically close to your place of employment, and deciding that actually I can live a good life and I can live in a place that is easy access to things that I enjoy, and I can, I can do my work and do my work as well as I could do from sitting in an office, but I can do it from my home or I can do it from a different place, and it doesn't make a difference, but everyone then feels more empowered and happy and genuinely a better existence because people are actually prioritizing their wellness and their happiness. So I think it's really exciting.
I think it's super exciting because there's that component that you just talked about, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Then there's also the other like property market component of it, which I think is really, really interesting. Because when you look at the typical areas which are, icons of lifestyle, which like Bondi Beach, Noosa, Byron, there's like, we all know like St Kilda in Melbourne, stuff like that, beachside locations, places where there's a bit of cosmopolitan activity. There's water, and there's probably going to be a golf course because they'll probably build a golf course, and they've got all these kind of things going on for them, right? We all know those places. We all know that they're all really expensive as well. In fact, on average, places that have got strong lifestyle drivers, so good cosmopolitan cafe shops, entertainment areas, and places to get out and about in the sun and the sand and the surf, are typically priced about 60 to 80% higher than the rest of the market, which is really interesting. And I don't think that comes as a shock. Anyone who's ever looked at a property price in Bondi will probably not be shocked by that. However, what is really interesting about that is how that may change property prices in locations more broadly. Because as people, let's just say, move from Sydney to Central Coast, or I know we've spoken about Yamba. I'm going to continue to speak about Yamba, but imagine, people moving even further up the coast to places like Yamba, or moving further down the coast, or in fact, what's even happening in Ballarat and Bendigo right now is we're actually seeing a new, a cycle resurgence is kind of thing, because it sort of reached the peak of its cycle a little bit. And then now, because people are leaving Melbourne and trying to get out into Ballarat and Bendigo, we're actually seeing another price surge happening in Bendigo and Ballarat. So what I think is really interesting is we're probably going to see a little bit more of a disaggregation of price sensitivity. And so what I mean by that is we're likely to see other areas with their prices going up asymmetrically to some of the more traditional lifestyle locations, because people realize they can get what they want out of those really expensive places. They can get them out of a slightly cheaper place. Might not be the same. It might not be Bondi Beach, but I can tell you that the price differentiation is going to be absolutely worth it. And I see that being a huge price driver, particularly over the coming months and even over the coming couple of years.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you said, like these kind of areas, you're not surprised by the prices as they currently are, but this kind of discussion is what causes those prices, like they are where they are, but something had to happen. There had to be some level of desirability for it to even be the baseline, if that makes sense.
100%. It's like, well, if you were to, let's just talk again, we'll talk about Bondi a little bit, but let's just say you wanted to buy an apartment in Bondi. I don't know let's just say you were going to spend 1.5 million on an apartment in Bondi for maybe 2 bedroom. I'm not really sure. I don't really look at apartments in Bondi, to be honest. But if you were to actually cut that budget in half and go, well, I don't have, say, 1.5 million, I've got 750,000, but I really like to live near the beach. I love some cafes and some community. You could probably go up to the North Central Coast, Mid Central Coast, something like that, and find somewhere for 750,000. There won't be a 2-bedroom apartment. Will actually be a 4-bedroom house on a large block, so you can have your family there, so you can have a backyard and live near the beach, and there'll be some cool shops there, and actually probably much more of a community environment, so you can get to know people a little bit better and feel less isolated, which serves the social function of keeping us all happy as a community. It's like, suddenly it's a game changer. It's a total game changer. And it's this kind of mentality which is what's driving up prices all along the surf coast in in Victoria. You know, I've read so many articles about people just going, oh, we were sort of thinking about moving down to the Bellarine Peninsula sometime in the next 5 years. But actually, now that we can work on Zoom, we're moving there right now.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard so many stories about people who have moved to regional centres, like sometimes tiny country towns and sometimes major regional centres, chasing their lifestyle without having a job to go to, not knowing what they're going to do, but just going, look, I can just move there and it costs me, you know, a third to 2/3 as much as it does cost me to live in the city, and I can have a much better life doing it. And the same thing is happening in Sydney, same thing is happening in Melbourne. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. It's happening in Sydney and Melbourne more than any other place because of price sensitivity, which is actually one of the biggest downfalls with the classic lifestyle driver locations, because they command a higher premium. But when people think about affordability, that top starts to come off in a much more meaningful way, or at least growth slows down. So this is actually becoming one of the things that's pushing people away. They're going, well, Melbourne's really expensive and Sydney is really expensive. Rents are really expensive. Property prices are really expensive. Could I get the same kind of experience living in Adelaide or even Perth, you know? And this is what's actually pushing people to start moving around, and why we're going to see a lot of interstate migration, particularly over the coming months. What do you think of that rant? It stopped very suddenly, didn't I? Anyway, but that was my point. And I think you know, it doesn't take a genius to kind of see all that kind of stuff going on, because I guarantee pretty much everyone's had the thought. You know, why do you want to be in a place like Melbourne, lockdown aside? You know, what is the thing that is keeping you there and why?
Yeah, and I think because there's a lot of unaware values that people have carried, where they think that they need to live near a city when maybe they really don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. And it's interesting as well, because I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago who was having this exact conversation in their household. They're like, why do we even live here? You know, why do we even, they live in Melbourne. Why do we even live here? And they started analysing it, and they started thinking, well, is it family? Like, we don't see family that often. Like, we see family like every couple of months, which is pretty normal, I guess, for a lot of people. So it's like, well, could we live somewhere that costs half as much, repurpose our capital and put our capital into better assets, which are going to produce more income, revenue and growth, live where we want, and spend that additional money that we're making and saving on coming back to visit the folks? And I think that's a huge thing that people are really starting to consider. I'm personally very excited, because of what I think is that despite the fact we've had a lot of we'll call them liberty challenges. You know, we've had restrictions to what we can do and all of that kind of stuff. I think that this is the turning point of an environment where people suddenly feel free to do what they really want to do, because they realize that they don't have to live the way they have been. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyway, we're here to talk about lifestyle drivers, not human psychology. But anyway, always about human psychology. So we've covered a lot of stuff. We covered why people want to live in these kind of locations, the key desirable kind of stuff, you know, water, golf courses, high streets, you know, cafe strips, the fact that people are moving towards lifestyle more thanks to COVID-19, risk of volatility, a couple of case studies of a few different locations. Have we missed anything, Gabby, or do you think that this episode has been impactful?
Both.
¿Por qué no los dos?
¿Por qué no los dos? No, I think you covered everything.
Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, if this episode has been beneficial to you, then I highly recommend you check out the other episodes in the Hunting Hotspot series. There's a lot of good stuff in there. We're only up to number 4. There's 10.
Yes.
There are 10. So we're only 40% of the way through this series, and we're going to continue going on talking about each of these independent driving forces that drive capital growth and drive markets around the country. The important thing to remember when you're listening to any of these is you don't just want to look for one. Just looking for one of these hotspot drivers, i.e. lifestyle features or urban renewal programs, is not enough. You need to seek 3 or even 4 to be working together in one place. And once you can actually find those locations that have 3 to 4 of these drivers working together, that's when you know you're in a good place to invest. Now, if you can do that as well as getting ahead of other investors, and then you're going to get in on the ground level and see the highest range of growth in the shortest period of time. And of course, if you want help to do that, we do this every single day. We've got an extremely good track record of getting great results for our clients. In fact, over the last 12 months, the average return on investment for our clients is 61.7%.
Yeah.
Hectic. And we do that by doing everything that we talk about. So you can either come and work with us and we can help you do it and fast track your success, or just go listen to all the rest of the podcast episodes. Go to theinvestorlab.com.au, download some free resources and guides, because if you become a better investor, our society gets better, and that's what we ultimately want. Thanks.